This is Channel 4 with Sign On.
Hello, I'm Caroline Edwards. Welcome to the second Your Views programme in this Sign On series. Today we'll be looking at how deaf people get access to information which is available to the general public, and also what can be done to increase awareness that deaf people aren't being given enough information.
Hello, I'm Simeon Hart. Just what do we mean by getting access to information? Later in the programme, Clark Denmark will be discussing this with our studio guests, who work with various deaf pressure groups, campaigning for more resources, to give deaf people better information to improve our lives. But to start with, take a look at this.
0800 100 123. Have you phoned up about the new disability benefits yet? Well, have you seen the ads in the papers then? Have you sent off the coupon? Come on, if it's your money and you're entitled to it, why not claim it?
That advert by the Department of Social Security, the DSS, does include sign language so that deaf people get the information they need. Also, Tyne Tees Television made a series of consumer advice programmes called Square Deal. These were shown in the northeast of England in March at the peak viewing time of 6:30 p.m.
Oh, life with a buggy isn't easy at the best of times, but with a buggy that has a desperate desire to veer to one side, it's impossible. But what's even more annoying is I only bought this quite recently. Come on, sunshine, we'll have to walk.
Square Deal is about your rights as a consumer.
Now that's really useful information given there. And it is for everybody, not just the deaf. But deaf and hard of hearing people have been given access to it through sign language and subtitles. So how do other organisations who make information videos become aware that there are people who would love to have access to their films but are unable to do so because they're deaf? A viewer, Stephen Wilson, from Irvine, Scotland, wrote to us with this particular concern. My first heart attack happened last June in the morning, as I was walking along here. It was over there on the hedge. I was on my way to work. It was early morning, so there was nobody around, and I had collapsed. Someone found me and phoned the hospital. I had 7 attacks in all, plus an operation. As I laid in hospital, I began to wonder that if it had happened in the deaf club, would the members know what to do? Would they panic, have to fetch a hearing person? Or would they be able to go right in and resuscitate me? Anyway, I talked to the British Heart Foundation. Their people gave me a video, which I watched, and it was interesting. But of course it had no subtitles or sign language, so how could it help deaf people? Help them understand what to do. I've been writing to them about this. And then I saw Channel 4's Sign On programme. It looked good, so I wrote to you. You've replied, and this is what's happened.
We contacted the British Heart Foundation, who said they are considering making a sign language version of their information video on basic cardiopulmonary resuscitation techniques called Don't Just Stand There. We hope they do. But, in the meantime, we made this short clip with Stephen just to show you an example of what to do.
OK, here we have a dummy on which to learn about CPR. which is the same as artificial respiration. The first thing I must tell you is that if you want to have a go at this at home, don't try it with real life people who are in A1 condition. You must use a dummy. Now, if you have an unconscious person in front of you, the first thing is A, B, C. A stands for airway, the passage by which the air reaches the lungs. B stands for breathing, and C stands for circulation, the blood moving around our body, enabling us to move. The ABC. Now the airway must be open and clear. Take your 2 fingers and the palm of your hand, tilt the head back like this, straightening the airway. Circulation. You can feel the pulse using these 2 fingers. You must check for things that have become stuck and block the airway. If they have false teeth, leave them in. Deaf people cannot hear the breathing, but can feel the air on their cheek. Feel the air and at the same time look down the body, and you can see the chest rising. So feel the air and see the breathing. Using your hand in this position, pump 15 times on the chest to 2 breaths. That's 15 pumps to every 2 breaths. Carry on for about 25 minutes. When they are resuscitated, place them in the recovery position. If a doctor or a nurse with more experience arrives, then please pass on the responsibility to them. If you are a Red Cross first aider, then it is your responsibility to start the resuscitation.
That's not the full technique, it's just an example. And remember, it's dangerous to practice this at home on your friends. Much better to join your local Red Cross, St John's Ambulance or first aid group, learn the techniques properly and practice on a dummy.
We've received a training video called More Than Just Words, made by the Royal Mail, in conjunction with the Merseyside Society for the Deaf. We went to Liverpool and talked to Jane Martin about how the video came to be made.
Approximately 4 years ago, I was employed by the Royal National Institute for the Deaf as an employment officer. And when it became apparent within the first couple of months that deaf people, when they went for interview, that they were being asked the same questions by employers about either communication support or fire regulations, health and safety. So that was one of the gaps that I felt needed bridging to let employers know what could be done. The second point was with deaf people, when they went to the interview, they were not sure about interview techniques, what sort of questions to answer to these questions. So I thought, well, a video would be good to educate both sides of the deaf community and the employers.
We at Royal Mail had begun to take on more and more deaf people. We are an equal opportunities employer, and when it was suggested that a video needed to be made to overcome the communication problem, we felt this was an ideal way of putting this policy into practice.
I applied for the job and they sent me a letter back for an interview. There was an interpreter there to make communication easier, because in the past I'd had difficulties. The interview went well and I was successful. The job was part-time to start, and then I changed to full-time and transferred here as a full-time postman.
As a personnel manager with Royal Mail, when we finished the video, we had a feeling of real pride. We'd done a good video, and we were really surprised that nobody thought of it before us, because it really does need making.
That's a good example of how organisations can help improve the employment prospects of deaf people, and also increase management's awareness of dealing and working with deaf people. Other organisations are also trying to improve access to their information by using signing and subtitling. The National Subtitling Library, based in Stockport, is helping them to do this. We spoke to Brenda Hamlin about their work. The National Subtitling Library for Deaf People, or NSLDP for short, was established in 1984. It was a small concern to start with. Then in 1988 we got a copyright, which meant we could take television programmes from the BBC or ITV, any kind of programme like news or films, for subtitling. I'd like to see this library develop in the future by sending a mail shot to various organisations, libraries, the Heart Foundation, the police. We're here to work with them to subtitle their information videos for the benefit of deaf people. That's what we're here for, information. At the moment, we're working with the Open University. That's one relationship we'd like to see develop in the future.
Great, at last. The use of sign language and subtitles on video is giving us access to information other people already have available to them. But there are other areas where the information is not on video, and we need to press for access to that as well.
Recently, this report from the Commission of Inquiry into Human Aids, or HACS, was published by the panel of four: the BDA, RNID, NDCS and BAHO. What are HACS? They're sign language interpreters, deaf-blind interpreters, lip speakers, note takers, etc. Anyone who provides a communication link between hearing and deaf people.
The report is 90 pages long, and it makes 82 recommendations about training, qualifications and types of services that should be available. The two most important are a 5-year plan to establish proper training for interpreters and to establish about 30 communication support units around the UK, centres that can provide qualified interpreters, lip speakers and note takers. And it says who should pay for all these services.
We've invited to the studio here today some people who've been involved in gathering information and making it accessible to deaf people. They're here to discuss whether deaf people have access and what can be improved in the future. With Clark Denmark are Alan Murray from Ealing Deaf Image, June Smith, who is a video rep for the London Deaf Video Project, and Evelyn Thomas from the Manchester Disability Forum.
Now, as we all know, the world is full of information. It's everywhere. Television, radio, newspapers, town hall and political meetings. But deaf people just don't get access. We miss out. Now, information is knowledge, and knowledge is power. Equality in society is important for us, and deaf people are not satisfied. So June, the LDVP, was set up way back in 1985. Was its aim to provide information?
Well, of course, LDVP provides information for deaf people by concentrating on the use of video. So any deaf person can borrow a video from our video library, and if a deaf person's interested in policies or politics, they just need to ask and we can supply them with the government's own videos. This means that deaf people get access. But, unfortunately, information about our services is disseminated by video reps, so not everyone knows about it. So I agree with what you said earlier, Clark.
Evelyn, is it the same for you in the Manchester Disability Forum? Has the information you have gained been of benefit to you?
Well, it's been a slow process, but we were established 2 years ago. Now we have a number of fora, not just one. There's the lesbian group, the blind group, the access group, the information group and the computer group, amongst others. So things are progressing. We are still in with the hearing people and disabled people, but we're hoping that in the future we'll be able to break away and form our own group, a deaf-only group.
Great. Now, Alan, the Ealing Deaf Image. Why do you feel it's important for deaf people to get together and access information? For a long time now, deaf people have had no information in BSL, sign language on video. Information has been printed in many different languages, Polish, Urdu and others. Deaf people don't get this information. The council have to realise that deaf people at election time have a right to access information. Also all the council services and the council meetings. That's why I feel it's important they have a full-time interpreter, because in our area there are over 300 BSL users and another 700 deaf people using other modes of communication. And those people need information. For example, we have a newsletter printed in English and we hope to produce a video for those people that like to get their information in sign language. The council must realise the need for our group, which was established way back in 1990. It's going strong and I hope we can carry on, but it's a slow process because we've realised information is power for deaf people. It gives us access to the services. Hopefully this year we will get a grant from the council to produce a proper information pack. It's interesting, Alan. You're talking about integration with the council, and that's with the whole community. Now LDVP seems different. You're putting integration aside and focusing only on the deaf community. Do you feel it's important for hearing people to know about deaf issues or not?
I think both are important. If you think about the fundraising process, say perhaps LDVP needs more funding and turns to the government or to various companies for grants to provide vital video information to deaf people. Those potential sponsors will associate the word video with the arts. They won't see the importance of the project. We've got to change our name to Access, which we will, so they're more likely to think of us as a service and fund us. Then LDVP can act as a go-between, providing access for both hearing people and deaf people. We should do both.
Evelyn, I've read something that impressed me, the fact that you have such a wide distribution of minicoms in your public offices, all over. Housing, education, social services and libraries. Did you achieve that through having the information?
Well, the problem was that we deaf people were losing out. We couldn't contact the library, for example. We couldn't get in touch with any of these places. So we put pressure on the Manchester Disability Forum and told them we need this service, it's important. For example, the airport must have a minicom, otherwise how can we phone up to book a flight? These minicoms are vital and we asked Manchester Disability to recognise their importance so that minicoms are installed all over Manchester. Sorry, could I just come back to something you said? Deaf people had a problem, so you set up a campaign. I disagree with that. I don't think it's deaf people's problem. We need better designed equipment. Hearing people have stereo and all that. Text phones are designed by hearing people. Where are the deaf designers? But it's not that deaf people have problems. LDVP is changing its name to Deaf Access to show what deaf people want. We're not calling it Deaf Problem. Well, I think access is problematic for deaf people, and Manchester Disability helped us to get access. I'm not saying deaf people have problems, just access is difficult.
Our aim is deaf awareness. They must know we need access to information. We want people to realise we use BSL as our source of access to this information. In the past, there has been no acceptance of that, and we've suffered. For example, when you walk into the council offices, there's a public address system, and deaf people have no idea what's going on. There's a need for an interpreter. Also at reception for inquiries. I feel it's embarrassing having to write things down when there's a big queue waiting. It's bad. There should be someone who can sign working there.
Excuse me, we've mentioned how progress is made. Can I ask, do you have regular meetings at your deaf club? At my deaf club in Manchester, we have meetings every 6 weeks to talk about the Manchester Disability Forum, how campaigns are going and such. And it's not only for Manchester Club members, people from outside Manchester come too. It's helpful to have these meetings. Perhaps you should set them up in your area.
Yes, we do have something similar, our consultation meetings. We have responsibility for deaf, partially deaf and deaf-blind people. We send our newsletter to various bodies to establish links and gain feedback so they can give us information to help us fight for our rights. You are both absolutely right. Your meetings are in the Deaf Centre, Alan's are not, but the group still exists. For those that think deaf people can't organise, you have gone ahead and done it. That proof is important. Now I wanted to ask you, June. We've heard about how Alan and Evelyn have gone about getting access to information. At the LDVP, how do you know what the needs of deaf people are?
Firstly, we have meetings which are compulsory for our video reps. We take one representative from each and every deaf club in London. They're responsible for finding out what deaf people in the clubs want and need, and for bringing that information back to the meeting. In a given year, the 3 most popular requests will be taken up, and the project will research and make the videos, passing them back to the reps to be shown at the deaf clubs. But also, deaf people can come along to the office and take the opportunity to look around our editing facilities and our library. And if deaf people want to send video letters but don't have a camera at home, perhaps they'd like to send a complaint to See Here or whatever, they can go along to the video project and use the camera to record their letter. I don't know if that means that deaf people have access.
Alan, I know you've been established in Ealing for only 2 years, but do you feel the council's attitude has changed in that time because of the image group? Have services improved? Are they more open-minded? Yes, a great improvement. We had a meeting with leaders of both local parties, Labour and Conservative. We spoke with each of them, and they realised they have no awareness of deaf issues. They hadn't thought about deaf people voting and paying the community charge for council services. We've got a £5,000 grant, and we will have to set up a secretarial post and a committee. But we must provide a good programme, sign language courses, interpreter training, we hope with the support of another agency. They need to fund interpreters because there is a national shortage of interpreters. The council wants an interpreter, but where will they get one from?
The possibilities are endless. Think what we're missing out on. Not just information, entertainment too. Look at this example.
That was a short clip of an Opera 80 workshop for deaf people in Cambridge. What's it all about? Watch next week's Sign On at leisure and we'll show you how it all worked.
And we'll be showing more films from Deaf Owl. as well as what's on in the theatre in June. So remember to join us at the same time next Saturday. Bye!